Welcome to the Peak Dawn podcast with your host, Chris Hall. And today I am very happy to have the wonderful Josh Perry on the line. Now, Josh Perry is a fascinating gentleman that is a former professional BMX rider. He's also a health coach, a optimization strategist, and he's the co-host of his own podcast, the Grey Matters podcast. Now, Josh has got a fascinating story around how he's optimized his life from a health point of view. And he's got some quite unique stories to tell in terms of some of the health challenges that he's faced too. So Josh, let's get straight into it, mate. Welcome to the podcast. It's absolutely pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to share and to connect and to match, as we were saying earlier, match the face to the emails and things like that. So it's great to see you. And I just appreciate you having me here.
It's cool, isn't it? This world we live in now. Here I am from bloody Australia, going to the States. And actually, here's a common connection between the two of us. My wife's American, and we got married in Cape Cod. And I understand that you were born and raised in Cape Cod.
Yeah, until I was 17. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? It's a small world. It really is. And I believe at 17, that was a transition point in your life where, tell me about it. You were getting into BMX. I think you moved to North Carolina. Is that right? To kind of pursue that dream?
Yeah. So Cape Cod's up in the Northeast America. I was 17. And one of those pivotal life moments was my boss at the time was a friend of the family, owned a landscaping business. I was, landscaping for him for about 2 years. And I went to a high school to learn the trade, have my own business one day. And he presented me the challenge, like, hey, you got to pick, is it BMX or is it me, and my job that I have for you, essentially. And because I was taking a lot of Fridays, a lot of Mondays off. Ironically, they have the same season, BMX competitions in the summer, peak landscaping, grass is growing in the summer. So, he challenged me and I was like, hey man, I appreciate all you've done for me, but I'm 17. I didn't have a prefrontal cortex fully developed to really weigh out the options and the logic behind it. But I was all in on my dream. And that's what, allowed me to drop out of high school, essentially, with the support of my family, moved 13 hours south down here in North Carolina, which I'm still here for the next 3 months. And then I'm moving to Florida. But I've been here about 15 years now and pursuing my dream.
And then tell me about that. What was it exactly that you were doing? So did you go to like train amongst the scene with some particular mentor? Like what kind of drew you to North Carolina in terms of BMX?
So at the time, it was becoming like the hub for BMX in a small town called Greenville, North Carolina. There's a big university out there called East Carolina University, and BMX just happened to land there. There's a long story about it, but Dave Mira, who's like one of the most iconic BMX legends in our sport, I had posted him on my wall growing up. He's got the video games. He was on all the MTV shows and stuff like that. Just household name. And his brother invited him out there to check out the local park because his brother moved there from New York to chase a girl that he was dating and going to college. And there was at the time, a phenomenal public outdoor park, which was unheard of. And them being in New York, similar to me up the Northeast of America, it's cold in the winter. So why not go down south and you can ride year round outside. And then just after Dave moved there, all these other guys started moving there. And it just became a place where at least 50 guys that were professional were there at any given time. And one of my friends I looked up to in my area, when he graduated high school, he was 2 years ahead of me. He went to college there so he could ride. And then I just was like, all right, that's where I got to go. I knew at the time, if I wanted to become one of the best, I had to be with the best, training on the best facilities possible. And so fast forwarding from when Dave moved there, they got indoor warehouses full of foam pits and training ramps, and you got everything you need. And the cost of living was dramatically cheaper in the South than where I'm from up north. So I was, paying $300 a month for rent at 17, 18 years old and, getting paid to do what I love. So it just made sense.
That's fantastic. And in the words of Tony Robbins, proximity equals power, right? So I get that, when you actually place yourself amongst the peer group that is going to elevate you and inspire you and motivate you and all of the above, then that's what it's all about. Like, I'd think of, say, for example, Joe Rogan, right? The amazing podcaster, amazing guy. Like, he was in Boston, but then moved to Los Angeles, Comedy Store. Yeah, he's moved to Austin now, but like, it's all about kind of placing yourself amongst the scene, wherever the scene is in the career that you want to pursue, right? So that's really interesting.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned that at a young age. It just made sense what I was observing. And it's like, I've been fascinated. You mentioned Tony Robbins, been fascinating with like NLP, like neuro linguistic programming. And one of the core concepts of that is modeling success. Like that's what NLP allows us to do. And at a young age, I was just observing people I looked up to. And I do that today. Like Kerwin Ray, he's one of like my favorite human beings that's not a part of my family. And I've been able to become a friend with him and like meet him several times. And like, it's just, I'm modeling what I see. I learned at a young age. It's like, all right, that person's doing something similar to me. How can I do that? Just, that was an automatic thought. And now it's like a thing. It's like NLP, like that's, become popular, but it's like, it's just modeling what we observe. And if we're able to find someone that's successful and model it, it gives us a higher probability of creating that success, but it shows us a roadmap of what to expect and what we maybe need to do. And in my case, it was, I need to move out of Massachusetts. I need to go down there. I need to risk, all the comfort of my family and being at home. And because of that, I was able to reach success as I defined it. And that literally saved my life too.
Well, exactly. And I believe you studied NLP. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
You're a practitioner, I think, if I read that, I remember correctly. Yeah.
I just formally went through the training and took my tests and passed like last week. So
congratulations. That's massive.
Formalized it. Yeah.
Totally. Like I've studied it too as part of my coaching. And indeed, I, probably like yourself, being to the Tony Robbins events, love the guy. It's all amazing stuff. It really is. Okay. And isn't it interesting sometimes about age and relative risk? Because I remember setting up my first business when I was, I don't know, man, I think like 29. And it was before I met my wife. It was before children. It was a lot more kind of like, just put it all on the table and do it. And I think there's something to be said for that. So there is an advantage. Say, for example, if we wind back to you being 17, but also equally, it's totally possible to do this in your 30s and your 40s. There's all sorts of things where modeling and committing, these are all just really, burning the bridges, burning the ships at the shore, right? That's where you like, okay, I'm on the BMX island, let's make this work. Now, I believe that things change. I know I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but I want to kind of give our audience a chance to connect with the health challenges. I believe at 21, things kind of really changed then in terms of health challenges. Can you give us some insight into what happened?
Yeah, for sure. And back to the age part, at 17, I knew I wasn't going to be able to pursue the career that I had chosen of an action sports athlete in like starting in my 30s or 40s. It's possible. There's still guys that ride in their 30s or 40s. I'm 32 and I could still ride. I just choose not to anymore. So I knew like, all right, there's a relative like time frame to my body being able to handle the abuse. And actually it's been a year since I've ridden my bike like that. And I have not felt this good mentally or physically since I was like 15. Like it's amazing. Just the lingering thing, like the lingering pain and injuries that athletes put themselves through and push forward. It just becomes normal. But then once you take it all away, I've just been like, oh, like that was aching for a minute. And then now it's just like, I feel good. Like I can move and like my hip's not bruised or my rolled ankle isn't swollen or like something like that. But yeah, moving to 21. So a big dream of mine when I was younger in BMX was to ride X Games. I never thought that'd be possible, but that was a goal I was working towards. And that's, we used to say that was the Olympics of our sport, but now BMX freestyle will be in this next Olympics. So that's really cool to see that progression. But I rode X Games. I'd been riding on the Do Tour, which was a big, across the nation series. It was about 5 stops throughout the series. They no longer do that for BMX anymore, but that was like, I was in both of those and I was traveling international, competing now. I had sponsors and like all these amazing things that I had dreamed of that I was living, but also on another level. Cause I'm now friends with like my hero and idol I looked up to and all the other guys, and they know who I am. I'm hanging out with them. We're going out to dinner. Like we're riding, we're training, we're competing, we're traveling, like all these things. And then getting ready for the next season of 2010, 2009 was the season I was just describing. 2010, it was March and it was the off season, and I'm trying to learn some new tricks, and I get this new trick dialed in the foam pit, and I want to go to the ramp because I want to try it here to see what works and what doesn't before I go to the contest. And the contest I'm getting ready for is in April. So I won my first pro contest, that same contest a year prior, which I also invented a trick and I landed it in competition for the first time that won me a Harley Davidson motorcycle. So I was like, all right, I'm focused. Like this is my event. Like I'm ready. And the trick went wrong. I got ejected off my bike. I kind of over rotated the flip and the spin. So I got ejected, hit my head, got a concussion, and had to get an MRI. The backstory to this is 2009, like X Games, Do Tour, sponsors, traveling the world. That was like it felt like my rookie year, but it wasn't. It was just like my name started to break out and all these things were happening. It was probably the most successful I'd ever felt, yet I was suffering beneath it. And I was hiding that external success or I was hiding the pain with all that external success. And I was also in a college town, and I was, 20, 21, depending on the time. And I'm drinking a lot to cover the pain. And I'm just living this poor lifestyle of poor food choices. I'm not sleeping much. I'm out partying, chasing girls. I'm training my ass off still. And, you know, going in and out of the emergency room and urgent care, multiple times through the year, saying, hey, I got these debilitating headaches and migraines to the point where I can't see some days,
Wow.
or it's making me throw up. Like, can we get some kind of scan? And I didn't know. I was ignorant. I was, X-ray, CAT scan, MRI, like something to look at my brain. And they kept judging me by my cover. We hear that phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, that actually almost killed me. They looked at me, 21 years old at this time, and I'm in shape, professional athlete, nothing abnormal in the blood work, everything checked out. They're just like, no, you're healthy, you're young, you just have headaches. Here's a pain pill prescription, come back if you need more. I didn't know. I was like, who am I to challenge this doctor? Even though I felt like I had something going on that was more severe. And now I know I didn't have a pain pill deficiency. I actually had something, wrong. And so fast forward to March 2010, hit my head and had to get an MRI after year and a half complaining and asking if I'm being denied. And then, I'm driving there to get the report after the MRI thinking, man, it's only been 2 days. And like, shit, another week, maybe 2 weeks off the bike. It's all right. It could be worse. And I get there, mind you, I'm by myself. My parents are still up north and I'm, doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario, 2 weeks off the bike. It's all good. And they accidentally found a brain tumor on the scan. And the way they worded it to me was so interesting because the nurse came in, came out, the doctor came in, his demeanor kind of changed when he looked at me. He's like, hey, how you doing? I was like, I'm just antsy to see when I get back on my bike. So what is it, 2 weeks? Cool. He's like, well, it's a little bit more serious than that. And he went on to explain that there was an abnormal scan. And I was like, what do you mean? I know like I twitch when I fall asleep and I'm like a weirdo, and MRIs, I fall asleep because they're an hour long and I'm super restful. And he's like, no, it was clean, in terms of the image, but there's something on your brain that shouldn't be there. And I was like, what do you mean? And he went on to say, well, we don't know at this time if it's benign or cancerous, but we do know that you need to have it taken out to save your life. And just want to let you know, you'll probably never ride your bike again. And all I heard was cancer, you may die, never going to ride your bike again.
Wow.
And that was when my world changed.
Wow. That gives me chills. And it's also terrifying about how diagnoses can be theoretically missed. Like in theory, that was missed for 2 months already, at least,
Mm-hmm.
And
the size of it. Have you seen the MRI?
I have.
The size of it. My surgeon was like, at least a year.
They're literally half the size of your left part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That and I didn't know. I wrote X Games with that thing. It makes sense as to what I was dealing with.
My God. And I mean, this is as soon as you hear those words, cancer, for example, right? It's very potent, isn't it? Like what was it, 8 weeks ago? It was a way more minor case, but I got a skin cancer diagnosis on my ear, and then literally I had to go do like 6 weeks of chemotherapy cream, which is quite a horrendous experience. And it made me just have so much compassion for the things that people go through. And but again, like just to relate, as soon as you hear those words, it's like, whoa, it's kind of like a surreal moment, isn't it? Where you go, I'm not sure if this is reality. I'm pinching myself, and I've got this doctor telling me this. So I guess like within that indeed, that's a paradigm shift. That's where your life changed forever, I'm sure.
What did you feel when they said that? Like, what was your initial reaction in your body?
Yeah, it was this is the really interesting thing, isn't it? There's a surrealness, a slight disbelief. There's the fear about it. There's then also, this is the interesting thing, I think that sure you and I connect on. There's also courage that kicked in. And that's the interesting bit, because I'm a married man, father, all that. And basically for me, I was like, right, it's like I stepped into this survival mode where I went, right, what are my options? And he's like, okay, option one is that we chop out a centimeter part of your not your brain, sorry, of your ear. But then what it'll do is it'll curve your ear around like this. So I was like, wait a minute, so that's like a deformity, right? So like technically speaking, that's a deformity where I'll have, the ear sticking out for the rest of my life. I said, okay, what else are the other options? He goes, we've got this cream, it's 95%. So, okay, well, what would you recommend? The cream's 95%, let's do that. But anyway, the point for me beyond the details is that I stepped into this courageous thing about, well, let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's get on with it. And then I got the prescription. Within half an hour, I had the script. And I was at home telling my wife that I had skin cancer, and fuck, she was putting, chemotherapy cream in my fucking ear. It was this weird moment, but I was like, it was kind of step straight into let's do this. And so courage is one of the words. And interestingly enough, Josh, I want to hear your story, right? Of course. But when I got to the end of that 6-week treatment, what I noticed is that as soon as it was done, emotionally, within 48 hours, I was sick as a dog for the whole weekend, and I could barely get out of bed. And I think maybe there was some side effects to the chemo stuff, but what I think I know for sure is that was the psychological weight coming off my shoulders, where I went, okay, you did the race, you don't have to be courageous anymore, you can just let yourself heal. And it's like when you go on holiday and your body goes, and you get sick. Yep. Do you know what I mean? So courage. I mean, I'm sorry to talk so much, but yeah, it's interesting to connect with someone about this, right? What about you? Like when you heard the words, let me ask you this. What was your mental and emotional attitude to diagnosis?
It was the most fear I've ever experienced in my life, even more so than surgery. It was the instant thought, oh, I'm dead. That's literally what I thought. I had never heard of cancer or brain tumors, things like that, other than my mom battling colon cancer. And she did it with a smile on her face to be strong for me and my younger brother. And, she's alive and well today. And that was part of, stepping to that courage, was knowing her story along with Lance Armstrong. So for me, another cyclist, different sort, yep. But what he went through, in my mind, I was like, oh, he went through, I'm going through one of the 3 things he had to battle. Yep. But when I was first diagnosed, I talk about fear, like fear has become like my thing to talk about. I mean, so much so I'm probably sure you've seen my tattoo. It says fear is a thought, and then thoughts can be changed.
Nice.
That moment when I was diagnosed, nothing about my reality changed other than information that came into my mind. Right. And I felt in that moment, I was dead. I instantly thought, I'm going to die. And then I went to, I'm never going to ride my bike again. And that was worse to me. Like, I wasn't even thinking about my life after the fact that I accepted I was going to die. I was like, I'm not going to be able to ride my bike again. Like, everything I've worked to get to this point, all those people that told me, that I'd fail and all these things, like, they're all about to be right. And like, I just felt embarrassed and I felt weak and I felt, all these things. But the courage moment it was like a shift between the next 9 to 14, I forget what it was. It's like a week and a half until I had surgery. And there became this shift with, understanding my mom's story. I'm a byproduct of her. And then understanding Lance's story. And then the community around me was phenomenal. It was everything. It was just so much support. BMX being around the world, whether they had met me before or not, they just, everyone was messaging me. So all these things helped. But then it got to a point where I was like, fear it's not an option. Like there's no room for fear, because the surgeon said, you can give this as long as you want without the surgery. I give you 2 or 3 months before you start suffering more. And then you just don't wake up one day. Whoa. Or you can have the surgery and have a higher chance. And, him being a brain surgeon, very, very confident. And thankfully the tumor I had and I still live with was benign. So it wasn't malignant. So it didn't, spread anywhere else. But I started to treat it like an injury. Like, because there was a point where it's like, there's no other option. It's have the surgery, have a chance. Don't have the surgery, you will die. We're all going to die one day, but you'll die as a 21-year-old when you have no reason not to do that. Like, just have the surgery. So I was like, all right, doc, what do I do? Where do I go? How long? I thought, all right, what's the year look like until I get back on my bike? Ended up being 5 weeks, which is phenomenal. But that's how I treated it. And it was just that shift in conscious perspective that changed my emotional state. Yep. And that's something I built my business around. It's communicating with people these concepts that we're talking about. It's as simple, not easy, as simple as directing your focus. Yep. You mentioned Tony Robbins.
Yep.
Where your focus goes, your energy flows. Like, that's energy is the language of the body. Like the emotions is just energy. But it starts with a thought. So I always challenge people like, oh, I feel, well, one, they're like, I'm anxious. I'm like, you're not anxious. You feel anxiety. Oh yeah. All right. So let's start there. Yep. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about all my bills, my responsibilities, this and that. Well, what do you want? I want to think about this. I want this. And then they just light up. It's like, just focus on that. And that brings me to my final point about this is, rather than focusing on what if I don't wake up, when it came down to surgery, fear had been removed. It was the vision. And it was like, what am I going to do differently when I wake up? I read Lance's book and all these things he talked about doing differently. And, the human aspect of like, yeah, you're so motivated, and motivation just fizzles when you wake up and you're at it for a couple of months. And then you're like, you find yourself kind of moving back into your old ways. But that was it, is like, how am I going to be different? And how is my life going to be different when I wake up? Because there's no reason to think about what if. I wasn't conscious of this stuff. I am now. But at the moment, that's just where my brain went.
Oh, love it. I mean, you give me chills. And I think one thing that's important for people to realize is that amongst courage, fear still exists. It's just that you don't let it dominate, right? And I think that when it comes to health diagnosis, this also depends which belief system you're going to embrace. So I think that in Western pharmaceutical culture, there is a belief that the C word equates to fear and death, potentially, right? The high probability, if you've got that, it means you're dead, right?
That's the immediate response. Yeah.
That's the immediate response. And that is literally the death spiral psychologically that one can go into, right? Because if you adopt that and embrace that, you are never going to get out of that fear mindset and even have the possibility of, kind of stepping into courage. You've got to have some form of either focus. I think that's a great distinction. And also, I'd like to put on the table embracing and opening up your mind to the idea that there are different belief systems out there that could help you through this. And one of them could be, my body heals itself, right? Mm-hmm. So of course, there are sometimes we need to get in with a knife and take things out. And of course, we need to treat a certain area, whether it be me and my chemo cream, all of that stuff. But then if we can adopt I take full responsibility for my lifestyle and for my health, and I choose to believe that my body heals itself. And that's actually, like, technically, that's how I take my attitude to even my way minor example of an ear thing. I've formally finished it. I don't yet know the result, but I have the belief system. I'm healthy. I'm healed. I'm done with this. Yeah. Right. And so I think beliefs help that focus too, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what we believe, we see in our external world.
Yes.
And I mean, that's another thing with NLP. And then before NLP, like in 2015, I got introduced to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work.
Yes.
Oh, NLP for me was like the icing on the cake of how practical this stuff is. Because even Dr. Joe talks about demystifying the mystical. Now he's got all the tech, all the scans, and all that stuff to show on top of people's testimonials. But for me, I was like, okay, how do I do this? Like what? And like, it all just makes so much sense to me now. And in NLP, you're aware of, like, are you at cause or are you at effect?
Yes.
That resonated so much with me that I actually got that tattooed on my hand.
Yes.
And being at cause is not to say that shit doesn't happen.
Yep.
But what it does is it tells you are responsible, not at fault or to blame, but you are responsible for your subjective reality. Meaning, how do you look at the world? What is the lens you're looking through the world or looking through to see the world? And how are you going to choose to respond in an intellectual way, an emotional way, and a physical way with your behaviors? And that is not to say bad things don't happen. No. But when you are at effect, you're saying it's that person's fault. It's this thing. That's why I'm here. Well, you have no responsibility for yourself. You're a victim. You're being at effect to your reality. The thing that's helped me get over not one, but 3 different brain tumor diagnoses on top of other injuries and living off my younger brother's couch at one point, which was really humbling. And, different people in my life, Dave Mira and my younger brother included, taking their life. Like, all of these things was to not be at effect to my circumstances, because the vision I hold in my mind is more compelling than what I'm going through. Doesn't mean I don't feel. That's a very tricky thing for people to understand. Because, like, you hear Jim Carrey talk about this, like, it's Buddhism. Like, there's no meaning to life. It just is what it is. We human beings give meaning. Doesn't mean I don't feel love or feel pain.
Yes.
It just means I'm trying to work towards a vision of my ideal life. And that was a challenge for my brother. I mean, this past June was 2 years since he passed away. And my coach, which I'm a coach, I work with a coach as well. I'm a big proponent of that.
Always the best dude. Yep.
Exactly. And she was challenging me 2 weeks out to, like, how can you honor your brother?
Yes.
And it just wouldn't, I couldn't make sense of it logically. And then one day, with a little bit of psilocybin help, and it was on his 2-year pass away,
No, but it finally into that. I get it. Yeah.
It finally hit me. I was like, how can I honor my brother? I can continue doing what I'm doing. I can choose to love my life by living my life in the best way possible. And my brother was the most outgoing, absurd, my cat must have loved that. Just said whatever was on his mind, so much so that I got embarrassed sometimes around him. And I was like, that's how I can honor my brother. I can live my life, I can love my life, and I can just be less uptight.
Yep.
And apparently Fred, he agrees, and you can see him in the back.
Yeah, Fred the cat's there to agree. Oh man, I mean, my gosh. And this is the thing. And so I have It's interesting. I have a relatability to this massively because for me, and of course, I'm incredibly sorry to hear about what happened with your brother. And I also get what you're describing, because the way I would phrase it is it's embracing the paradox of that, right? So you can paradoxically allow yourself to feel, but don't allow yourself to go into some kind of mentality where it's about thinking it's unfair or letting people treat you like it's unfair. Of course it's fucking unfair. It's shit. So that's the feeling piece, but it's how you choose to take it forward, right? And for me, that was potent for me at 25, because my parents got killed in an avalanche in the French Pyrenees, and it's like, boom, 25 years old, your life just changes, right? And I knew going through that year of mourning, I knew psychologically, and this is my personal experience, it was like I was literally on the knife edge of a ridge on a mountain. And I've been there, by the way, with my dad, because I was a mountaineer with my dad as well. And it was metaphorical, but literal to me. Literally down there was the version of Chris that people could forever say, poor Chris, he's never been the same since his parents passed away. And then the other version is the person that got the most rapid baptism of fire and initiation into adulthood and what it means to move on to that next stage of life. And that to me is a form of honoring as well. Like, I get that, because if you think about it, we all lose our parents at some point, right? It's logical. It has to happen. If assuming they go first. But that's really a form of initiation for me. It was like, well, it's going to happen. So how can I embrace it? And of course it's shit, and I hate it, and it felt it, and I miss them. But it's the same paradox. I just want to say, like, I get it, and I really relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that as well, but I appreciate that you can understand, and that you've taken the same route. It was really difficult when I got challenged with that. It's like, all right, well, are you honoring your brother by feeling sorry for yourself? Are you making it about you? And I was like, fuck, I'm making it about me. Which is, it's fine. We feel, but that's what helped me. It was like, yeah, I can love my life.
Mm-hmm.
That will honor him, and that also, things that happen to us, we make meaning out of it. And I choose to make meaning out of things as how can this serve me with my mission of contributing to other people?
Yes.
So it's when you look at things like that, yeah, you're going to feel things, but it's like, I think that's why I also gravitate towards people like Kerwin and Jim Carrey. Like,
yes,
their mindset, and why I'm such, so fascinated with psychedelics and Buddhism lately. It's just like, I want to expand my mind, because I believe now that this isn't it. And I believe I'm a human being, but like, that's not it. And it's just like the mental game of being a human. Like, that's how I look at life. It's like, it's a game. Like, there's other levels, and this is just one. So why not enjoy it as much as we can? And that includes embracing pain. That includes embracing love.
Yep.
Like, that's everything. You can't just have one or the other. And then also, like, artists like Mac Miller, like one of my favorite musicians, like his music just changed over the years. And unfortunately he passed about 2 years ago as well. And you could see the shift in his consciousness and what was important to him, talking more about love and spirituality and the divine feminine and like all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gravitated towards people like that, because it, like people, but also it's more, how would I word it? Like, it's just, you can feel the same type of people embracing the same concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, you feel much more love to give to people, and empathy, which I think is a huge challenge right now. There is not enough empathy going around, because there's a lot of hurt people going around as well.
Oh, completely agree. And I mean, segueing into that briefly, like, yeah, I think the phrase that always resonates with me on that is hurt people, right? Yeah. And sometimes it's, so there's a lashing out. There's also a genuine amount of pressure in the world and all that stuff, and division. And yeah, I completely agree. But on a lighter note, next time you go down to the Amazon and you want to go hook up a ayahuasca ceremony, give me a call and I'll jump on a plane, because I've not done that yet. And that's absolutely on my bucket list.
Sounds good. Yeah, I look forward to that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm so resonate with everything that I'm on the same page massively on this stuff. Now, I want to kind of go into some of the ways, some of the strategies that so of course, you've gone through 3 tumors now. You've really, my gosh, it's kind of like the attitudinal shift into courage. And it sounds like a lot of spiritual development as well as personal development has occurred because of the facing of the prospect, the idea, the potentiality of death and mortality, plus, just kind of like the way that you chose to focus on things. Can you tell me a little bit about your lifestyle in terms of what do you think the difference is in your mind between a diet versus a healthy lifestyle, and kind of how do you think about these things, and how do you prioritize, health in your life? Because I've read about this, but so I'm kind of jumping there, but I want to hear it from you. Like, what priorities do you take in your life?
So I'm super like literal. So when I hear the word diet, I think of the definition as just what one person or community consumes. The thing is, with capitalism and the modern world, we've taken that word and distorted it into something that it's not. And so people hear diet and they cringe. Diet's whatever you make it.
Yeah.
Now there's these types of eating and these types of diets you can follow that make money for people that invented them, but that's not what I follow. So when it comes to a healthy lifestyle, specifically with food, I first believe in understanding like what are you going through that you're wanting to change. Then get your data. Like something as simple as getting a glucometer and test your blood sugar. Like if any one person just started there, they wanted to improve their health, get an idea of what your glucose reading looks like when you wake up, before a meal, and then 30-minute increments up until 2 hours after eating a meal. See how high it goes and how long it lingers. And then if you want to take it a step further, get a fasting insulin test, because some people can be like, oh, I have a normal blood sugar reading. And then they get a fasting insulin test and they're, they're like 10 points higher than the next person and so it's like, okay, you have a regular blood sugar level, but you're pumping out twice as much insulin to handle it. That's not great. And where I'm going with this is because if you can understand that your blood glucose is going to be the biggest determining factor in the rest of your health overall, because of how much it's interconnected with things, that's the one step I think anyone can take to understand, are they living a healthy lifestyle or not? Stress is involved with glucose readings, alcohol, and your physical activity, all these things. And a great book that will rock your world is called Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. That changed my world of food in 2013.
Okay.
And that's all about blood sugar regulation and how it pertains to your brain health, how it pertains to disease, risk factors of the brain, and all this stuff. So much so that this science has gotten so evolved that type 3 diabetes is what they call insulin resistance in your brain. And that's the hallmark of Alzheimer's. So that's something to think about. But in terms of a healthy lifestyle, it just depends on what you're going through. Like, what do you want to be true about your life? Healthy lifestyle is not just food and exercise. It's mentally, it's emotionally, it's spiritually. It's how you feel connected in the world and what you're going through. What are your thoughts on a daily basis? What are your unconscious thoughts? What are your unconscious programs and habits? And that's the first place. Is just ask yourself, am I happy in any one of these main areas of life, with your relationships, your career, your spirituality, your fun and leisure time, your finances, your physical health? Like, just start there and just ask, am I happy? Am I completely happy? Is it a 10 on a 1 to 10? It better not be a 10, because you're a human being. It's impossible. So figure out what that number looks like on a scale of 1 to 10, and then ask yourself why, or what do I want? The best thing you can do is just audit who you are in any aspect of your life and figure out what is healthy to you then. Because is being depressed and insecure and locked into a job to pay all these bills of things that you don't really need and the car you don't really need, like, what is the true purpose of that? That was, for me, the big eye-opening moment. It's like, yeah, I want to, be a successful entrepreneur. I want to have this car and I want to do this and that. Why? And I kept chunking up to why, and being honest. And it came to a sense of freedom. I want to be free to live my life how I want. I want to be free of what other people think of me. I want to be free of health challenges and injuries. And like, I just want to be secure in who I am and confident. So do I need that thing to feel free? No, I'm capable of feeling free right now. Okay, well, let's audit how I live my life. It takes time. And of course, this is just very surface level, but that's how I think of a healthy lifestyle. Is that, are you matching your actions to what you say you want? Or are you living by the mask that is our ego, protecting you from the things that you want based on the outside world? So a very complicated answer. I probably didn't speak directly to it, but
oh, it's gorgeous and it's comprehensive and I fucking love it. That's fantastic. No, fantastic. And I get that. Yeah, I get that as a coach. And indeed, it's a dynamic process. You'll never be the 10, as you say, in every area, but it's by auditing and looking at the different realms. As you're saying, you just identify, should we say, it's about flow, right? It's all about energy flow, literally. And imagine like your life is like a plumbing system, and are your pipes clogged, right? And you know when there's one that's clogged up, and that's the audit, that's the self-examination. And just even removing a blockage that is like liberating. Sounds like I'm trying to take a shit here, but but you get the idea, right? And and also one of the quickest ways to do that is, what do you think about this? The combination of physicality, but also personal development. So what I mean by that is, I've had a challenging few months at work and all the kind of pressures and the usual stresses of jobs and blah, 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 all that stuff. And simply the act of getting up at 6 this morning, being on that beach, going for a run and seeing that sun rise and feeling the lungs pumping and jumping in that beautiful bloody Australian salty water afterwards. And guess what? All of the shit that was in my head and all the stress that was in my chest, it's like, even though it was there for half of the run, all of a sudden by the end of it, it's gone. It's gone. So the physicality is like is a direct kind of immediate, kind of jack into the power line. And then when you supplement that with great people in your life where you can have a great conversation, for me, that's my wife, as well as my friends and people like you, is literally, it lifts me up. So it's kind of, what do you think about the secret sauce of great exercise combined with fucking great people around you that are personal development interested and know these distinctions, or even a coach, right? And they can just kind of, make that shift last in a more sustained way.
Yeah, so a few things. I mean, I think what comes to mind with all the things you're saying on a macro level is integration. Doesn't matter how much you meditate, doesn't matter how much you exercise or eat, or how many psychedelic trips you go on, or how many float tanks you do, or how much journaling you do, or reading, or all these things. It doesn't matter. What matters is if you integrate it. Theory is only good if you apply it. Like the whole phrase "knowledge is power" is bullshit to me, because I know so many people that have so much knowledge, so much knowledge, so much value, so much love and passion and creativity, and they're insecure. They have limiting beliefs weighing them down, so they'll never see the light, or what they have will never see the light. So knowledge is not power. Applying knowledge is power.
Yes.
So that's the thing with all of those things. It's about integration. Now, the quickest way that I believe and I've experienced to break a state is with movement. You can't help but feel different when moving your body, whether it's jumping in the ocean, it's going for a jog, doing yoga, an exercise, a bike ride, whatever you want to do. So I think that's the important thing. It's break that state. It's understand it's all about an integrative process with the people in your environment, aka your environment, people, places, things, all that. But what I think really comes down to is understanding you, being vulnerable enough to see past your ego, which is there to protect you, but it's been there for so long at a moment that didn't really exist, that you made up in your mind and created an internal representation of it, which is how you see the world. And over time, it's compounded into protecting you for something you want to do, which there's no fear of it. But when you were younger, you raised your hand to answer something, you got scolded because it was wrong, or everyone laughed at you. So you felt sad, felt fear and anger. So you never spoke up again, but you really want to go speak on stage, whatever it is, or be a musician. So yeah, movement is great. Doing things differently is great. Breaking habits, doing new patterns, new habits, but it's only going to be sustainable if you can acknowledge the limiting beliefs and negative emotions that are fueling all of your motives, or that are your motives. And until you rip that shit out and reprogram it, you're operating on Windows 95 in 2021. Doesn't make sense. It's not going to add up. What device is going to work on that program or that software or that operating system? So yes, all these things are great. But I think deeper than that is acknowledging who you are at your core and what your insecurities are, which is a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard thing to accept, but that's what makes us human. And the only thing standing in the way from where we are and where we want to go are skills and beliefs. And we have so many bullshit beliefs weighing us down that it makes the most fantastic artists their work never see the light of day. Or this brilliant professor never go to college because they don't think they're good enough, or they'll be able to. They're fearful of the test or failure that could save lives, or someone to write a book. Like I went through that myself personally, writing my book. So I think it comes down to integration, acknowledging the BS that is your limiting beliefs, and then movement to break a state. And that's what Kerwin talked about. He blew my mind with this a couple of years ago. He's like, yeah, when you're stressed out, your IQ drops half in 7 minutes or so. And now you're trying to make logical decisions, executive decisions. How good are you going to be at making a decision if you can't think clearly? Go do something. And I have an Indo board over here. I got a stand-up desk. I'm always moving. So I think it just comes back to integration, movement, and then understanding your limiting beliefs and what do you want to be true.
100%. And that the integration and the application of knowledge, that starts to speak to the realm of also the doing part. So as humans, we can get stuck in just thinking and feeling. And imagine that's like the two parts of the pyramid. But then on the bottom, there's the doing, which is the execution, right? So, one of my philosophies is that we've got to make sure there's a healthy flow between aligning your thoughts and your feelings, and then get the hell out and do it. Get the hell out and do it. You'll build up your self-esteem. You'll get results. You'll You know,
But no, by
you-
doing new things, your
yes,
bullshit's going to come back up and try to stop you.
yes,
That is
yes,
something like, and James Clear in his book Atomic Habits, he talks about this. Like, it's not about being perfect, but it's also like creating a predictable condition for yourself. Old patterns are going to come back up with doing a new change.
yep,
And Dr. Joe, he highlights this brilliantly. Your body emotionally is stuck in the past, living your present self every day, creating a predictable condition. But
yes,
when you break that, you're going to get a whole new experience, but that's scary. That's unfamiliar to the body. On a cellular level, we're addicted to stress. Like
yes,
that's something that people need to understand. Because yeah, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. I've had clients from years ago that did everything for our time together, 4 months, 5 months. They got great results. And now they're working with me again, or have worked with me again.
yep,
But I didn't have the tools and understanding I did then about identity and belief structures. Fred agrees. He loves it. but that's what it comes down to. You can say you're going to get up at 6 a.m. and go for a jog. Maybe you do that for a year,
yep,
but nothing about you and your paradigm, what you operate from, changed. So
right,
your problems continue to come. And that's what you were talking about energy earlier, suppressing energy.
yes.
And then all of a sudden you get sick when that's just releasing energy. Like that's
Dis-ease.
all that shit
Yeah,
stored in you.
yeah,
And I believe that's what I went through with brain tumors. I was
yeah,
insecure, I was stressed, I was operating off of fear and spite and anger and all this stuff. And then I got a brain tumor, and it took two more diagnoses. I live with 4 today to teach me I don't need that. I can
right.
operate from love and inspiration.
Well, even the linguistic origins of the word dis-ease, your body, your life, your energy is not at ease. It is in dis. Like all this stuff,
Yep.
like fascinates me. There's so much wisdom that is just right there in front of us, right?
It's
Okay,
a lot simpler. We make it
it
so
is.
complex.
It
We're
is. It
afraid
is.
of it
It
being
is.
that simple
It
because
is.
then we
Yeah.
have to act.
Uh-huh. That's it. That's it. That's it. Now.
That's been a learning lesson for me in this last year working with my coach.
Uh-huh.
I wanted freedom, but I was designing my days with 4-hour time blocks amongst all my other things to learn more, trying to ingrain everything in me because I didn't feel I was good enough. Who am I to coach these people that are in my mind way more successful than me? I was belittling all my own successes. Who do I know that rode X Games with a brain tumor, lives with 4 brain tumors, and still does what they do and doesn't define themselves by it? I wasn't seeing that. And
Mhm.
so I was making myself not being worthy of working with the people, not even the money thing, like the whole guilt and shame around the money conversation. That was another thing. And so I think this is just a very important topic that clearly I get fired up about.
Oh, absolutely. No, I love it. I absolutely love it. And when you think about coaching as well, yes, there can be a place sometimes for, here's the distinction for me. If you want someone to teach you how they did it themselves personally, then you want a consultant sometimes, not a coach, right? And whereas if you want a coach, that's the person that can ask powerful questions, be the third party observer, and the insights that you'll bring to say the CEO of a Fortune 100 company or whatever. The point is that you're the third party coach asking the questions and constructively challenging them to expand. You know,
Yep.
you're not stuck in their paradigm. You're not, fighting for the same, should we say, agendas that are and the dynamics of energy and relationships that they've got in their life. You're just
You're not emotionally attached.
you're not attached, and that's the power of coaching. That's the power of
Yeah.
coaching. That's where the value is. No, fascinating. Now, in terms of finding your why, like I understand that going from BMX and choosing to shift into the coaching space. Like, can you tell me about that? Because what was your, like, should we say, why that you attached to BMX and that progression in your life, and how has that shifted into what you're doing now as a coach?
I wasn't conscious of it back then, but I think my why I was chasing BMX was just to feel like myself. I never felt like who I truly was unless I was on my bike. I felt like I was suppressed with my voice growing up, and I, not from obviously my mom, my dad, but like, I grew up with an abusive stepfather, um, and it was like to show emotion was weak, and I get punished for it, and then so that led me to being insecure in school and like all these other things, and so when I was on my bike, I felt free,
Right.
and it comes back to freedom.
Free
Now,
comes up again. Freedom for you, right? It's interesting.
exactly. Yeah, it's been a common theme. And the transition was after the 3rd brain tumor diagnosis. I had just had my best year ever competing in 2016. I was getting ready to do the same thing in 2017. Mindset, body, like everything I was working on to be an elite athlete inside and out. And then the brain tumor diagnosis a 3rd time with 2 additional brain tumors, leaving me 4 today, was February 2017. And
My
I was in
God.
the middle of doing an ESPN article when we were talking on the phone and part of it. And I was like, yeah, I just got told today that, I got 2 more brain tumors. And he was like, you've said that so casual. And I was like, man, it is what it is. I did it already multiple times. It'd be all right. I started thinking like, rather than feeling sorry for myself, which lessened the 2nd time, This was now 5 years from the second one, which was 2 years from the original one. So I'm 7 years out from, having brain surgery. And it wasn't any sorry for myself, it wasn't any fear, anxiety. It was just, what can I do with this? How can I help myself? And how can I help other people? And that's when I made the choice to find the meaning in that, to, oh, there's a bigger purpose in my life than just riding my bike. No one cares that I'm riding my bike. Really, the people that are new to my story only care that, like, oh, he's doing it again because it's inspiring them. They're seeing something that they want to have in themselves. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing on my bike. They don't care if I win or not. They don't even know if I go unless I tell them. BMX isn't on TV like it used to be. And so I made the decision to choose to see, oh, my real purpose in life is to help other people, is to get them out of suffering. It's to allow them to feel free. And Jim Carrey talks about the same thing. He's like, I learned that, like, comedy and this and that was to free people from concern, because I saw my father going through that. And, like, I needed fame and fortune to teach me that I didn't need that. I could be happy and be myself with it. So that's how it came. Like, people ask me, how do I find my purpose? I'm like, well, you can go my route. I don't know if I can give you a brain tumor, but you can go through brain tumors and you can learn, or you can choose to do what inspires you, what you love to do, and enjoy the process, as cliche as that sounds. That's all I was focused on. I had that vision in my mind to be a BMX athlete. I wanted to be like the people I looked up to. And I did that. And along that route, I had hardships. And then that's what taught me what I was capable of. Like you said, courage. Didn't know courage until I got diagnosed with brain tumor. I had to accept, all right, mom, dad, I may die. I'm about to go out, about to do surgery. Like, I literally had to say bye to my parents and my brother in that moment, and think, and hope that I would wake up with strangers cutting into my skull. And so when people ask, like, how do I find my purpose? Like, do things. Gary Vee talks about all the time, like, go do shit. Like, you don't know what your favorite food is until you've tasted it. Go taste things. And I don't mean to take that from him, but it's a beautiful analogy. It's like, go try stuff, see what comes up, and see what you learn along the way, and what you're lit up about.
Absolutely. I love it. And okay, so I mean, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the freedom thing is one of the core thrusts and such a relatable story that you very much bring to your audience. And clearly there's the whole package around personal development and spiritual development, as we've alluded to. Are there any other particular kind of, should we say, processes or strategies that you kind of take people through as a, all right, this is the first thing we look at, this is the second thing we look at. Like, what's your kind of approach to that in terms of helping others find their purpose? Because I have philosophies around it myself, but I'm always fascinated to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a 30-foot view, it's simply just starting with, before you even get into goals, like things like that, you don't know what your goals are until you've gotten rid of all your limiting beliefs, or at least tried to get rid of some of them. So the first thing we do is we go and we uncover the unconscious mind. We figure out what's going on, what problems do you have in your life? And then we dive deeper into getting the conscious and unconscious mind to work together to figure out, when did this start for you? And going deeper and deeper into, okay, you say this problem of not having funds is the problem, but then we discover, oh, there's a root cause to this problem of you not being worthy or feeling worthy, or you having whatever it is. So we find those root causes. And then with time, we reframe these, what I call emotional memories, and we reframe them. We have new conscious decisions, new conscious learnings. We look at something as simple as, Joe is 10 years old. He wants an ice cream. His parents say, no, we don't have time, or no, we can't afford it, or money doesn't grow on trees, all this stuff. He sees Johnny down the road, got a 12-pack to bring home. And he made a decision in that moment that, oh, my parents don't love me. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, this or that. That's all bullshit. You don't have a prefrontal cortex that's fully developed to make logic out of things and to think clearly. And so we go in and we figure out, what are your limiting beliefs? What are the negative emotions you've been operating off of? Let's reframe them. Let's gain new learnings. And then creating a conscious plan of moving forward. That's not about perfection. It's about consistency. But you can't even figure out any of that out until you figure out what your limiting beliefs are. And that's, we go into setting goals and outcomes, because you're gonna instantly be like, oh, I want that. Oh no, I don't need that. I got a blessed life. I don't need more, or I'm not capable. All that bullshit. It's like, no, that's not your true self. That's from the past. That's just your body still stuck in the past. So simply put, we just go and expose that stuff, and then think about, what do you really want? How can we make that process happen? And being a coach, you ask powerful questions to get the person that's not seeing something you can see to find their way there, but then also hold them accountable by, what do you want? What are you willing to do for it? What do you agree that you're going to do? And then let me check in, like, that's a very broad explanation, but That's simply my process. I don't have the answers. You have the answers. I know how to
Yes.
pull them out of you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's it's the peeling back of the onion, the seeing what's
Mhm.
underneath, healing the traumas, creating a new way forward. I love it. I love it. I have the same philosophy. And one of the things I also find interesting is helping people discover what their natural talents are. And their
Yeah.
natural talents are often not what's on their resume.
I had a
It's
major breakthrough with a client the other day that she kept saying things, and I was like, "What do you mean you don't have passion?" 'Cause that was her thing. And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, I went through my notes and she was like, "Oh." And that sparked a new business idea for her.
yes.
And then she just got an interview
Yeah.
after that, or an opportunity. And I was like, it was right in front of you. I didn't know that, but you knew it. Your unconscious mind stored all of that and it's right in front of you. Like, it's a
Yep.
beautiful thing.
Yep, I totally agree. And the way that, in addition to all these things we talked about, one of the things that I love bringing to people is there's the Gallup company, and they've got their Clifton Strengths methodology, and what they do is their psychometric test, which is one of the top 5 in the world. It tells you how you think, feel, behave. And then, for example, it allows you to articulate and know yourself from the point of view of your natural talents and strengths. And it's so, for example, I know that when someone says, "Who are you, Chris?" my response is literally, "I'm an energetic strategist that's passionate about uncovering the futures that inspire other people." I'm like, boom, drop the mic, walk off the stage, right? But that literally is an expression of my natural strengths. And so what
Mhm.
I've come to realize is you've got to do everything you just described, because that's so essential, because that's the core, that's the uncovering. And I know that, for example, me having a conversation with you today, this is my zone where I love connecting with incredible
Same.
people.
Yep.
This is the zone, this is the sweet spot, right? You get it, and I feel it, right? But I know both of us are doing this not just for ourselves. We're doing this to inspire other people, and that to me is an expression of who I am and who you
Mhm.
are. And it's also links to me to the purpose, which is helping other people. And I feel like purpose, when you start accessing that power of it, it's often oriented not just towards. It's oriented to self-expression, natural self-expression of what you want, who you are, etc. But it also tends to then orientate towards others, doesn't it? Whether that be
Mhm.
your family, your friends, your community, the business you want to create, the impact on the world you want to have. What do you think about impact on the world? That's an interesting one in relation to
Yeah.
purpose.
I think that's everything. I mean, that's what I've dedicated my life to, is creating the biggest impact I can. And I think
Yes.
that this line of work and reflecting on what I've been through and having more empathy, like, I have like a deep sense of love for everyone, and I
Hmm.
want everyone to win. I want everyone to succeed. So even when you're explaining like who you are and like your strengths, like, I consider myself an optimization strategist. Like, I love freeing people from their limiting beliefs and empowering them to create their ideal life. Like, it doesn't matter what success means to them. We all have different models of success. And back to what we were talking about earlier too, this just came up. We were talking about coaching, the difference between coaching or like a mentor. I make videos about this and I speak on this all the time. Like, there's a vast difference between a mentor and a coach. A mentor can coach, but anyone can really go learn how to be a coach, and they can ask powerful questions and things like that. But it depends on what you're looking for. For me, I'm always looking for someone that's walked the walk, that's been to where I want to go, that can guide me, that can go coach me, can mentor me, because and the more I'm public about me being a coach, the more I get hard sold on coaching programs. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna teach me how to make $1 million a month? Show me your tax return."
Oh, I know,
Oh,
I know, I
crickets,
know.
crickets,
I get that
cool.
all the time. I can
And
help
it's
you
just
get avalanches of leads, like whatever.
it's just like, all right, cool. But like, that's it. Just it comes down to what you want. And I resonate with what started me on this path. They're doing something I want to do. I don't care what certification they have, what degree they have. I don't even care if they know how to read and write. They know something I don't, and I want to know that. And that was a big limiting belief I had to work through, was because I was a high school dropout. That made sense at the time. But
Mhm.
then I was like, I was being told by people that were in my world, supporting me in the health field or whatever. You can't do that. You can't help people with their health unless you go to school and get a degree. And then I was like, oh yeah, and getting all this debt. And I led into it for 4 years.
Yep.
And I went to orientation for college twice. I finished, I went in the States, I went and got my GED. So I got my high school diploma at 21 years old. So about 4 years later. But I went to orientation for college 2 times within the 4 years that I worked through that limiting belief. And I don't care about certifications. I had a doctor tell me a certain graft I should get for my ACL reconstructive surgery. And I
Mhm.
had this other person telling me I needed a different one. but she hadn't gone through the surgery. All my friends that had the surgery all agreed with what the surgeon said on that particular graft. None of them have degrees, none of them are doctors, and they all had the experience. And so there's no right or wrong. It just really comes down to like what I believe in is, oh, you're a coach? Cool. Have you done anything remotely close to what I want to do? Okay, cool. You have, so you can show me. I trust that. I don't trust that, oh, I have a degree and I can coach you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that can do that, but are you going to give me results? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it comes to a former coach of mine also said, as you progress through whatever the chapters are of your life, you now have the chapter of Josh Perry, professional BMX rider, Josh Perry being through health challenges, Josh Perry optimization strategies, and you're going through all these different chapters, and each one of those things is literally a demonstration of I've lived this, I've experienced this in my gut, it's in my soul, I've got wisdom to share.
That's the only reason I built my business was because I started noticing these things. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine had been telling me up until about 6 to 8 months ago, he'd been telling me for like a couple of years. He's like, dude, you help people get out of bed. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, no, because I was wrapped up in the keto world because keto, ketogenic diet and ketosis was a big proponent of my health. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, that's the only way. Like, I'm just a health coach. And I had someone tell me, you're limiting yourself. You're being one dimensional right now. There's so many people that can help or that you can be helped by you with what you have to offer. And I thought I only had to offer like nutrition advice.
Yes.
And then when I accepted like, oh, I'm more than one dimensional, I'm multidimensional. There's so many aspects. Yes. And then that's when Dr. Joe's work and the NLP and Kerwin Ray and like all these people it just was like, oh, I get what my friend's been telling me for so long.
Yes.
Like it all comes down to mental, emotional makeup. Nutrition, exercise, meditation, it's all just tools.
Yep.
It's all just tools.
Yep. And when you can, the power of the word and of people like yourself is that when you can weave together those multiple dimensions into a meaningful story that people can relate to, that's when they connect with you, and that's when the breakthroughs are caused. So it's so important not to stay in a unidimensional thing, because people like yourself and I, we don't live in that singular paradigm of you're a just this or you're a just that. I think there's a proper word for it. I think it's called a polymath. I suspect you're probably one too. A polymath is someone that can just go across all these different realms and suck it all in and take it all in, but then convey and connect. And that's, I acknowledge you for that. And I think it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it makes sense as to why I've never really liked titles, because I'm like, I just feel like that puts me in a box. Yep. And I feel like optimization strategist, I came up with that. I don't know if anyone else calls himself that, but I was like, that just makes sense. I love the word optimize because that to me is progression, evolution, growth, strategy. Like you need strategies and plan. Like, so I was like, yeah, like I feel like that gives me the freedom of who I am rather than a coach, a health coach. Like I was put myself in a box. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it just triggered so much shit in me. And I think that's another thing is like being aware of what triggers you and then finding ways to move around it.
I love it. Well, I'm sure a lot of the listeners today are going to resonate with your values, with your philosophy, and with your story, and also what you bring to the table. So, I mean, Josh, tell me if people want to connect with you. Tell me. We'll put this all in the show notes below. But where are the places that people can hit you up?
So the easiest is just my website, just joshperrybmx.com. But I'm most active, I'd say, on Facebook and Instagram. I have a Twitter, I have a LinkedIn, I have a YouTube. I guess I'm equally active. I try to be active on all of them, but the story behind my website is joshperry.com. That person wants like $6,000 for that URL. And I won't bring myself to pay $6,000. And it doesn't make sense. All my social media is all locked in the BMX. So it's a part of my story. So it all works out. But yeah, everything that I'm on is just Josh Perry BMX.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. Well, Josh, it really has been an absolute pleasure. And for those of you that enjoyed having listened to the Pete Dawn with Chris Hall podcast, please subscribe on your favorite thing. And also please check out Josh's podcast, the Grey Matters podcast, which I believe is on a variety.
I'll have to get you on there sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to, brother.
I'm trying to get Jackie back in. I've been taking over for the last year doing solo episodes or episodes with guests, and I'm stuck on like 20 episodes to edit now. I went crazy, but I'm trying to get her back on it because I have so much fun doing interviews and just chatting with her. Of course, she's my life partner. But we'll have to get you on there. I think we'll have a really interesting conversation, and I just appreciate you having me. So I'm always down to chat too with interesting people that I think can bring value to people.
Likewise, mate. Likewise. Josh Perry, you're a bloody legend. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to reconnecting with you soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you.